let me show you one of the most useful features with DJI's tracking. So right now I'm working with the DJI Mini 3 Pro, but this works with any of DJI's drones that has tracking capabilities. So with your tracking, there's a few ways that you could track your subject. You could either use the active track mode, the spotlight mode, or the point of interest. Now with active track, the goal of tracking is to follow your subject. So I turned on active track, it's on trace, and I'm just gonna walk around, and you can see that the drone is gonna follow me behind. And that's with this specific drone. Now with the DJI Mavic 3, the tracking's a little bit different. You don't have trace and parallel like the Mini 3 or some of the other drones in DJI's lineup. However, it does work the same. You either track from behind, or you track from the side, or you track from in front. And so it's a super useful way to track a subject, especially if you're solo, super easy way to track yourself. So I've just turned on point of interest, and now the drone is just gonna do an orbit around me, and you could set the speed at which you want this orbit to happen. Now, the drone's gonna keep the distance that you set away from yourself, but you could adjust this, so you could pull back on the joystick and it's gonna move further away, or you could pull forward on the joystick and it's gonna move closer. Now you could also go up on the joystick and it's gonna continue to spin, or you could pull down on the joystick and it's gonna continue to spin and move the gimbal. So you could create really dynamic shots using this point of interest mode. Now the last mode is spotlight mode, and the whole point of spotlight mode is that the drone doesn't move. It's just gonna keep the subject centered, and whatever you do, the drone follows. So I'm gonna start walking, and it's like a tripod in the sky, and it's just keeping me centered. It's a super useful tool. Filming by myself, I could get these shots where I'm just walking, and the drone's gonna continue to film me no matter what I'm doing. And so there's some really cool ways that you could use this spotlight mode and also the point of interest, because essentially you could create really dynamic shots that are hard to do by just keeping it in one of these tracking modes and then moving the joysticks and letting the drone not only keep the subject centered, but also move the gimbal up and down. And these kind of shots are some of the hardest shots to get when you're doing it manually. So let's first just put it into point of interest, and let's start a spin. So if you wanted to do a shot where you reveal that the scene that you're in, you start with the drone up high, it's doing the orbit, the point of interest, and then all you have to do is pull down on the left joystick, and as it spins around, you're gonna reveal the scene because the drone's keeping me centered, but at the same time, it's moving down, which means it's automatically moving the gimbal up. And so you could create these dynamic arcing motions where you're gonna get these two different layers of movement. You're gonna get the circle around while also having the gimbal move. So let's take it out of point of interest, and you could do the same thing in spotlight mode. So if you just pull left or right on one of the joysticks, it's gonna just do a point of interest, an orbit. But you have full control of the speed, so I could start slow, and then I could pull and go super fast and then slow it down. And so you have a lot more control using spotlight because it's completely up to you. So now I'm gonna push forward, it's gonna come towards me. While I'm pulling to the right, it's gonna orbit around, and then I'm gonna push up. And now I'm creating this huge spiraling motion, which is so hard to do by yourself when you're trying to twist the drone and also change the gimbal orientation at the same time. So one way that I like to use spotlight mode is I'll start pretty far away. I'll just pull left or right, pull down on the joystick, and I create this big arcing motion. And as I come down, I can slow the motion so it reveals the scene. When you use the point of interest, you're stuck to the one speed unless you adjust the little arrow. However, when you use spotlight mode, you have a lot more flexibility to create a more dynamic shot because you can speed up and slow down all of the motions because you're doing it all manually, but the drone's gonna keep you centered the whole time. So when you're using these automatic features, think big shots, and you wanna think vertical parallax and horizontal parallax. What that means is spinning around your subject while also moving up and down. And when the gimbal stays locked on, it's gonna create parallax between that subject and whatever's in the background. And so when you go down and up, it's gonna create this vertical parallax where you'll see this huge movement out in the distance. And if you're spinning around the subject in the point of interest or orbit mode, well, you're gonna see a lot of horizontal parallax with things moving at two different speeds between the front and the back. And so when you're doing these types of shots, think big directions. Start from on top of your subject and spin out and around so that you see all of this parallax between vertical and horizontal so that you can have these cool dynamic shots that are super easy to do when you're using these tracking modes. Now, if you want to see my complete guide on how to fly drones, it's available over on the Creator Film School. And next, you should check out this video right here, which goes through a ton of different drone moves that's going to help you get more dynamic shots when you're out flying. I'll see you on the next video.